I'm Will Reuter, and this is HBA After Hours, a podcast from the Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City. Welcome to another episode of the HBA After Hours podcast produced by your local Home Builders Association of Greater Kansas City. As always, I'm your host, Will Reuter, the Executive Vice President here at the KCHBA, and my co-host is...
Keith Sauro, publisher of Design KC and the Real Estate Book and New Home Guide. How are you today, Will?
I am doing fantastic.
Great.
Sun is shining. We got some good material to go through today. So
yes, we do.
I'm excited to get to the episode, so maybe we should just do it.
That's great. Let's thank United Heating, Plumbing and Cooling, and Design KC today. I'm not supposed to say my own company.
I would like to say thanks to the guy responsible for that, so you need to introduce me to him sometime.
Okay, I will do that. Absolutely.
Well, with us today is a familiar name to most people who have tuned in to any kind of housing content in the Kansas City metro over the last several years. Terrell Jolley, commonly referred to as TJ. I'm introducing himself. He should be introducing himself. I'm going to allow him the opportunity to do that. But we're thrilled to have an opportunity to discuss some of these housing-related topics to somebody who is boots on the ground, making things happen in these communities. And so to have this on-the-ground perspective as a way to condition our readership, our listenership, to ask the right questions, to understand things through a different lens is an incredible honor, very humbling. So let's throw it over. TJ, say hi to the people.
Hey, thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
Glad you could be here.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, TJ, you are prolific on social media. You're on a lot of podcasts. I mean, you're just a very frequent face of this housing ecosystem within the broader Kansas City metro. Tell us a little bit about how you got into housing in general, or, what were the pathways that led you to, being the prominent force in housing in Kansas City that you are today?
Man, really, it's just simply been the grace of God. I'm not originally from Kansas City, born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. And after graduating college, I was placed here as an operation manager for a lumber company, Southeast Wood Treating Company, to be exact. And in the process of operating a plant and then meeting my wife, we were closing on a property, and the reality came to me, the fact that the broker approached me and said, "Hey, you seem like you're very organized. Have you thought about doing property management?" And at that time, I was a little cocky because I was finishing my MBA, and I was like, yeah, I can figure that out. And the reality, I thought, the broker understood what property management was. And I said, yeah, well, I can figure it out. And he didn't know exactly what it was, but it was my introduction and education on what Kansas City was from a landscape lens of real estate. And I never forget from that moment, 3/29/2013, 11:43 a.m. to be exact. That's when Integrity Capital Management came to existence. And, one of the first houses that I managed was at 54 Harrison. And at that time, I didn't understand how important truce was. The street truce was a very important factor because when I put that sign in the yard, the phone went berserk. And first people walked in, they said they wanted to sign a lease, and they paid me for a year.
Wow.
In advance. I said, I could do this.
Oh, this is a piece of cake.
It's easy. But what was unique about that situation was the fact that that was the only home on that block was not owned by UMKC. And that was the reality that I didn't understand at that point in time, but I didn't understand at that point in time what was happening across truths. And that was really just my whole introduction of really understanding the difference between operating west of truth versus the east of truth.
So when you jumped in thinking, okay, I could do this. I'm going to just get in. But something changed, right? And there became kind of a higher power and a higher focus.
Right.
Talk about how that shifted for you.
Yeah, what shifted for me was start understanding, I guess anything that people think about real estate first was the reality was attractive against this understanding how you own and operate an asset. And I fell in love with operating the asset, and then I was like, well, how do I get into this full time? And when I understood what property management was, anybody know about property management, you only 10% of a deal. So if I'm renting something out for $1,000, I'm $100. So how many properties you got to manage to actually make a living? That wasn't gonna work.
Right.
So I had to actually own the asset. So I end up figuring out the fact that through a lady I'll never forget, and I'm gonna always shout her out anytime I have a chance. Her name is Debbie Swearinger. And Debbie Swearinger at the time was at Arbus Bank. And that's one of the key components of understanding how to have banking relationships. And at that time, I didn't have two nickels to rub together, but something told me I need to know somebody in commercial lending. So I asked Debbie to lunch, and I explained to her what I wanted to achieve. And she said, you gotta have skin in the game. And at that point in time, I didn't know what skin in the game meant. But what that meant is I needed to take out some capital. And I took out a HELOC, and my wife, who was not a risk taker at all, period, engineer, and we was gonna work our 9 to 5, and we was gonna retire and ride until sunset. But we know that don't always work out that way. But something magical always happens with the fact of the reality of someone that doesn't live in your household says the same thing that you say, and it works. So Debbie came and said the same thing I said to my wife, and she let me do it. But that HELOC empowered me to understood that the house at 54th and Harrison looked exactly like this house at 55th and Woodland. Identical, same bungalow style home, same front door.
Same floor plan.
Same, identical. I mean, but different location. But that house was $4,000 on the acquisition. The house over I was managing, the client I was representing, they had to win it at auction for like $140,000. They had to win it for $140,000. So it peaked to me like, wait a minute, something is going on. So once I started fumbling my way through a rehab, right? I had to fumble, no offense, but I had to fumble my way and learn how to speak the language of contracting, right?
Yeah. Emphasis on the first syllable.
Yeah, I had to learn that, and I learned a valuable lesson off that first rehab. But it taught me several different things, and it gave me a different lens on an ecosystem, because that ecosystem is that you not only creating hope that that house is being rehabbed, because that was a blighted home on a block that it was only 2 vacant homes and that whole block would be complete, but also the people that's working on that home. You creating opportunities for a job. I literally had someone on my team at that time named Cornbread. Now Cornbread was the same individual that used to walk past and the AC would come missing. But when she employed Cornbread, the AC showed back up, right? So it's those point of engagements that you start understanding how to navigate those things. So that's when the shift ended up coming to understand, like, wait a minute, it's something more in here than just grabbing this home, rehabbing it, and those different type of things.
So you identified the ripple effect immediately,
right?
That your employment strategy was also loss mitigation.
Right, exactly.
And you can only learn that the hard way. Yeah. The need for housing is enormous, and you're one entity that's doing a lot and is out there. What are the things that stand in the way of integrity reaching the bounds of what it's capable of, and what are the barriers that prevent the next version of TJ from realizing the same level of success that you are? Is it institutional? Is it administrative within the cities? Is it purely an access to capital things? Like, why are there fewer examples of your own pathway that exist today?
Yeah, it's funny. I just recently had a conversation about this. If I was to duplicate this process, I don't think I could get to even the small scale that I still feel like I'm at a smaller scale than I could possibly be. I couldn't duplicate where I'm at now if I was starting up today, because acquisition is drastically different, and we can go into a whole different podcast about the building codes.
Oh, sure.
Right.
But let's get into it.
Yeah, so it's just different. So when I first was getting going, one thing that people don't understand about Kansas City, and it's still to this day, it was reported we're still the number 2 in the nation for the best place to invest in real estate. Bigger Pockets still reporting. If people don't know what Bigger Pockets is a real estate investment podcast platform. Brandon, that originally started it, talked about how bus loads of people used to fly in and get on buses and tour the east side and acquire these homes. Kansas City Star put a report one person purchases 900 homes at one time. They call them slumlord millionaire. Every LLC, they got Cash Flow Kings. We got one guy, company, Whitestone. They own 9,000 plus.
So these are private equity groups.
Well, some private equity,
Okay.
some bigger landlords, whatever. But the craziest thing that's mind blowing to me is that everyone outside of Kansas City see value
There you go.
in where we live, but we don't see value ourselves, right?
Interesting.
And in my personal opinion, we roll out the red carpet for them, and we being the city rolls the red carpet out for them, right? I'm held at a different standard because I live with my asset versus the person that doesn't even live here with the asset. They can get off with a whole bunch of different things that I can't even get by with. So it's just those different things that's the most frustrating thing that you can't even
Is that
imagine.
still happening today?
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. So like prime example, when I used to get, you can acquire a property, you can use rehab a property. I used to be all in and out of property for 50, 60,000. Now, the things that I choose to do once I rehab a property, I partner with organizations like Restart, New House, Community Link, Section 8 voucher holders, whatever the case may be, because I believe everybody deserves a quality place to stay. That's what I chose to do with the assets I do after I get finished. Boom. That was, people say affordable housing, let's throw affordable out the window. I just wish people take that out the conversation. People need housing. People need a house. So I call it situation house. Anybody from chronic homeless all the way to someone that might be on the brinks of 50,000 that can't maybe purchase a home or whatever. People need a roof over their head. So you can actually, we got enough housing stock that's just sitting here vacant that you can rehab. And at that time, it was 120 days or less.
Right.
At that time. Now I can't, I
Yeah.
can't even tell you what that is.
So what made you make that conversion from real estate investor that could probably rent for twice the amount of money that you're renting the homes for to taking the noble route to help people have a roof over their head? Where'd that turning point come in for you?
I mean, everything that God says is my faith. You have to be a good steward.
Yeah.
If I'm asking the Lord to bless me with many, I got to be a good steward over less.
Yeah.
Right. So the reality is that like I got to be able to do good by what I have this control over now, and just keep doing it. So my thing is like, just do a good solid deal. It's gonna come. It's gonna come. And that's the craziest thing about real estate. If you do a good solid deal, you can get paid and do it the right way.
Right.
And
Right.
nobody knew what was gonna happen. I mean, nobody saw what was happening with COVID. Nobody saw what was gonna happen with people, how people view single family homes. Because now, though, like banks used to laugh at me about single family homes. Now banks looking at me like I had a glass ball.
Right.
like what? Oh, you got a portfolio, those different things or whatever. But it's just, if you just really put a process in place and stay the course, real estate is the only game that I personally know is if you do it the right way, you stay in it and ride the wave, it's gonna pay every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's in riding that wave, there's always a counter wave or a tsunami that hits you that you couldn't foresee. Right. And in speaking with members of the HBA and other partner organizations around the metro, one of the things that just keeps lapping up against the shore against people trying to make this housing happen is continually changing city processes and perspectives, requirements, fees. It's just an avalanche that all compounds. It's not one regulation in isolation that's the reason that we can't achieve our housing goals. It's the just the aggregate nature of just stuff piling up. And so if it's that hard to do greenfield development in places that should be easy to take from a raw piece of ground into a neighborhood, something that is been done for generations and it's spread out all over the metro, it's that much more difficult to accomplish the redevelopment of existing areas. And rather than accelerating the redevelopment, it seems like there is an even higher standard placed on that reinvestment in those areas that has never really truly seen the level of investment that it deserves. So I don't know if you can speak to some like specific things that occur within the city of Kansas City, Missouri that are unique to it. Because one of the things we also want to do with this podcast is educate regular people as to what they can suggest to their council member or to the people involved in their social circles as the things they can speak up about as a way to improve those circumstances. Because housing is like one of the number one topics that everyone's talking about. You know, housing this, housing that, housing
around
too
the world.
expensive, housing's not available.
By the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is not in isolation unique to us issue. Everyone's talking about it, but no one knows where to start because there's so few people on the ground that are equipping or able to equip people. And I think you're uniquely suited, TJ, to be one of those people that can be that kind of bridge between the common person and a greater understanding of what it takes to actually bring housing to the forefront. So, you know, what are some of those disconnects that exist between cities and their housing goals and their city departments with what the realities of the market are today?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm well suited. I just don't know how to, I don't know how to sugarcoat things. I'm just a straight shooter.
I like it.
And the reality is like, it has to make sense, right? Things have to make sense to me. And the things I'm witnessing, it just doesn't make sense. So, prime example, if we just analyze several different things that we see every day, right? One thing I cannot comprehend, if we're in the middle of a crisis, as you just stated, in the world, we have a challenge getting people in homes, roofs over their head. Why would you implement something that will bottleneck it?
Right.
Right.
It's not
That's counterproductive. So we didn't have an issue before. Now you created an issue. Now you totally just crippled it and put more people on the street. Now, multiple people have expressed it's a problem. It's a problem. Now, by the way, if you want to stand back, you can look at everybody else around you. Raytown, Olathe, Lee Summit, Omaha. Everybody else is still moving along.
right.
Except you.
Yeah.
That's a prime example, right? Okay. Now, you can use the example of a soccer stadium. I'm not going to say what soccer stadium. I'm just going to say a soccer stadium. Now, anybody know building codes? Anytime we got to take a permitting down, if we want to do an addition, if we want to get permitting or whatever, the first thing they're going to evaluate is what? Parking spaces for per unit.
Right.
It's a requirement that you have to have so many parking spaces. The soccer stadium that I might be referencing, tell me where the parking lot is. I'll wait.
There's no place to park. That's pretty much no place to park.
So you can't tell me you can't make it work.
Right.
So you can make it work for soccer.
Right.
For enjoyment.
So coming down to agenda.
But you can't make it work to put nobody in the house.
Right.
Shows you where your priorities are.
Help me.
Right.
Help me out.
I know. It's so funny. You know, we had a guest the other day, Patrick Toohey, talked about this very thing. And he basically said the big picture thinking that you've got, you know, there's one thing that might have started out as a noble idea and a way to do it, but they don't look at the cause and effect and how things will spiral out of control should someone take that stance. Right? And how you don't see it, I can see in your eyes, is like, how do you not see it, right? Are you blind, right? So I get it.
Yeah, it seems so obvious to a rational person who can get from point A to point Z and get all the way through the alphabet without missing a beat. But when it comes to housing and being able to see the forest for the trees, they lose their way so quickly. And, you know, everybody, you know, wants to run for office saying, I've got, you know, affordable housing's on my platform, right? Or housing affordability or housing availability, whatever the combination of words that people put together to put on their campaign flyer. And then the moment that we get into office and a chance to do something about it, it's, I'm going to follow this bright and shiny other thing that becomes my new priority at the expense of housing. So it's like affordable housing will get you elected, but actually pursuing affordable housing gets you unelected. And I don't understand what happens between putting your name on a ballot, taking your oath, to where you lose your mind when it comes to housing.
But why is it a responsibility of us as citizens to take the stance on housing? City, is you supposed to take the lead. You supposed to take, okay, even if you don't want to take the lead, fine, great, don't take the lead. But why are you gonna make it challenging?
Just get out of the way then.
Right, at least get out of the way.
I mean, that's all I'm simply saying. Why make it challenging? Why make it a problem? Don't make it a problem for me to simply try to operate on something that we trying to resolve.
Right.
And I think, to that point, TJ, it's about, if you're not able or willing to make it better, can you at least commit to not making it worse while we try to figure it out? But
That'd be a good way to go.
But that's what we run into.
That's a noble idea.
Particularly with Kansas City, is just like, hey, guys, this is going to have a detrimental impact, and here's what this is going to look like. And they're just like, well, we either, one, don't believe you, or two, don't care, because the political benefit for us is going the route we were going. And when you're chasing votes or chasing headlines, that's a lot different than chasing rooftops. And they're in conflict with one another. So we've got to
and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, and we got to figure out a way as a society to make housing outcomes good for political outcomes. Because right now there's a disconnect that exists out there, that the people that say, oh, I'm all for housing, just not here, right? They say, or community character, or all of those, buzzwords that they use. It's like, well, when you start putting conditions on things, that means you just don't want any of it. So stop. If you're not going to change your behavior as a policymaker or as a regulator, then just stop talking about how important housing is, because you can't reconcile those two.
So TJ, when you talk about it making sense, right now it's probably just math, isn't it? The math doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, we walk by simple solutions, in my opinion, every single day. I mean, how many land or properties turn over to the land bank every year that just sit there and die? Last time I checked, they got one person in the land bank.
Meaning managing all of that?
Yeah.
And how many properties would you say are there? Any idea?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Hey, nobody picks up the phone. Nobody picks up the phone. You can't go on a website to even search correctly because the inventory is not updated. It's been years. I just gave up to even try to, But last time I filled out the application, that was the only time I actually had to physically handwrite an application. I got ridiculed because I typed it, right? And then that's the only application I had to physically take a Social Security card.
Wow.
To apply.
Tell listeners what land bank is.
So land bank is supposed to be a tool to anything that doesn't sell in a tax sale every year. It rolls over to a land bank, and it's supposed to be sold at a reasonable price. Now that's another issue.
Right. What does that mean? Yeah.
And it has some challenges. It has some corruption in the past, all these different things. But for some reason, instead of trying to actually get it out the door and get it back on the tax roll, they actually think it has value when it's actually negative value. Mm-hmm. Prime example, if you're going after a piece of land, 9 times out of 10 is something buried, like a house.
Like a house is literally buried in the ground.
Pushed into the basement with dirt.
So now we're talking about remediation. So
Right.
That's at negative value,
Heck yeah.
right? Then if you do have a structure, we know what that entails. So to me, it should be a situation where it should just be good stewards on getting into the right hands to be put back into service.
Yeah,
but
you can't reach anybody to even talk about it. Even know what's there. There's no inventory list.
I've had a property over on Brush Creek that we've been rehabbing the office space, bust up to a lot. I have maintained this lot just because it congregates a lot of people, but I want the grass to stay cut because the city wouldn't keep it cut. I have donated to my local city council because every time they call, They said, can you make a donation? Sure. Make the donation. And then I have wrote up a letter. I have put a proposal together and tried to acquire this lot just because it just makes sense. Can't even touch it.
So they'd rather leave it vacant, not take care of it, ugly up the area, than sell it.
I guess eventually, I don't know. It's just those challenges, and it's costing all of us, because I guess when they do decide to cut the grass, well, you can at least give it to me, but I'll pay the taxes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Start producing something for you guys.
I'll pay the taxes, and eventually, I'm planning to develop it.
With it.
Yeah,
right.
Develop it, or whatever the case may be. But it's just those different things that we keep walking past, and but like they roll out the carpet for Mac Properties.
Yeah.
I think that's the trap that some of these communities fall into, is that the grass is always greener. Like our local guys,
no pun intended.
We know we already got their capital. Their capital is captive. They're all local. Let's go get more, to come in. And well, what do you got to do? You got to show capital that it's going to be treated well. And if you've been abusing your local capital, you got to do something different for those guys. It's like, we're not asking for special treatment. We're asking just for that same treatment of capital, because all these dollars spend the same. And wouldn't you want this, property developed by somebody that lives down the street and is building it for somebody that currently lives down the street and just wants to upgrade?
Mm-hmm.
But that is just, that's met with a quizzical look on the part of, certain entities within the city of Kansas City, Missouri, are just like, well, good communities. We're Kansas City. We're going to host the World Cup. Have you heard?
Right.
And so we've got.
You would think that would pedal to the metal.
It's like we can't be meddling with this common people around here. We need international dollars in Kansas City, because we've risen to that level. And I'll tell you, Kansas City is a place that, like these large publicly traded entities have not historically been successful in the long term. It's the people that live locally that have, a vested interest in the success of the community that have the long-term survivability.
Right.
So I just, these disconnects that occur, and we're not going to solve this here, because I feel that we're three logical people, and we don't have
that won't work.
We don't have that illogical person.
I just don't understand politics. I stroking ego. I just don't.
Well, that's why it has its own definition.
Yeah, I just can't comprehend it. Like, what does it actually say? You can't tell me, even if I was on city council, whatever, you're walking into City Hall every day, I'm assuming, or every other day, however often you go. You riding up Truce, you going past Linwood and Prospect. Look at the corners.
Right.
It is flooded with people.
Mm-hmm.
Not getting on the bus, not moving. They're standing there hopelessly.
Yeah. You started a conversation earlier
They
before.
packed.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, you started a conversation, and I'd like you to pick it up. Before we started, one of the things you talked about was crime and the relation to housing.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that in your thought process on it.
Yeah, the thing, as you mentioned about priorities, you said the World Cup. Everybody think the silver bullet is downtown baseball and where the Chiefs are going to land. Let's not forget the $120 million lip on the freeway. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they plan to put tents or whatever on them. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. But it's amazing that even before that, the focus was 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light, however more money lights we can do down there. That performer never performed. It's never going to perform. My kids will be covering that debt. We understand that. They said that had to be done. Okay, guess what? It worked. We got the World Cup, we had the draft, Taylor moved here. Everything is great, right?
Seasonally.
Right. We got the entertainment flowing and all these different things. But the thing, for the life of me, I can't understand, why can't we take that same chance with housing? For the simple fact, the example I brought up earlier was, we're in August and we have reached our 100th homicide. at the loss of a 16-year-old child where she's supposed to be in her house, in her home.
It's horrible.
And you cannot tell me I'm willing to stand on the table against anybody and say that person on the opposite side of that gun did not have a solid home or a stable environment that they could call home. Because when you have a home, you have hope. When you have hope, you value. You value you value everyone around you. When you value everyone around you, you won't have this. You won't have this situation.
Right.
Prime example, I mentioned earlier, I'm not from Kansas City. I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan was the only city in history to file bankruptcy. At one point in time, we were the number one for the top murder rate. Now everybody is championing what Dan Gilbert and the Illages did. We the best city in the world. Detroit is amazing. But people often forget about what those times were. But what was the biggest issue? Was housing.
Right.
You used to walk into the city of Detroit and pick up a house for $500 anywhere you wanted to. Because of the tax situation, the collapse of the Ford situation, all the big threes, all these different things, it was a madhouse. Now, all this rebirth came off the back of a crisis.
Right.
But the crisis was recognized on every level, from grassroots, city, all the way to the wealth. We are in a crisis now.
Right.
But it hasn't been recognized. So are we gonna sit back and say, well, let's wait?
Right.
Yeah. Someone else will take care of this. These things
Let's
work
wait.
themselves
They
out.
will. They'll
Yeah.
just figure it out.
Yeah, let's wait.
So where's the
That's
first
crazy.
cog in that wheel? If you were to say, if you had the power to make the first change, what would be that first cog in the wheel?
I guess I want to two-part it,
Sure.
right? And I guess I want to say this in the most respectful way. What does it take to get the ear of our mayor, our city council, for the respect and the understanding as they did, as they had the voice with the KC tenants? Because when that situation happened, it seemed like a whole lot of stuff shifted, right? Now, they brought up some valid issues and some different things or whatever.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Or whatever. Some things came to forefront, some things, whatever. But I want it to be more of a resolution base, right? So I don't think it has to be in a sense of like, why are you not listening and hearing what are the true facts? Has anybody actually did analysis of what the 2021 IECC stuff is actually producing? Are you actually looking at that? Are you actually analyzing how long it actually takes to process a permit? Are you actually taking accountability of how many permits were lost during the crash?
I think you're taking TJ in your next lobby.
I'm
meeting.
telling you.
Crash. Are you taking all these different things or whatever the case may be? Is it a way to prioritize your local homebred developer builder versus your out-of-state person that's not here? Is there a way to organize in that way? Because if it is, I think that should be a priority.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it should be a priority.
You're basically saying fair and equitable.
That's all.
It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? However you want to word it. If you're going to take all those steps for economic development, right, which is in driving people and driving visits and getting soccer, FIFA, getting all the different things, the draft that we got, which and the new airport, was a catalyst to that too. None of that would happen, as we know, without that new airport. And there was a lot of dancing going on with that. So what you're basically saying is, if it can happen there, why can't it happen for the people?
Yeah, and the thing about it is, like, all we simply trying to do is trying to do what's right. Like, just give us the opportunity to get back where we once was, to be efficient. Can we work together as efficient? Because the mindset I feel that's now in City Hall is the mindset of no.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
No, not production.
Well, no's easier.
Yeah. Not like, how can we help? Whatever. I had a good friend by the name of Devin Cobb. She had opportunity to bring me to the table to discuss some things with Olathe. And man, we sit down with the person over permits, and the guy said 5 days. I was like, no. I was like, if I bring you, no, he said 5 days. He said, I said where you said. I said where you said. No, you got to get you in and out of here. They was solution. How do you become solution based?
Right.
And to answer the phone when you call, and just provide that level of customer service. And it is so apparent when you go jurisdiction by jurisdiction within the metro, the people that see this local investment as the customer. It's like, my job exists as a building official or an inspector is to get this person's project move forward because they've satisfied all of the rules, and I don't have a job absent their success in my community. But
it's the opposite, isn't
then
it?
in certain jurisdictions, it's just like the people that are bringing me permit applications are barriers that I have to overcome. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a nuisance to have to review a set of plans or issue an actual permit. Case in point, in the city of Kansas City, Missouri, once you get all of your plans reviewed and approved, and you get your plot plan reviewed and it's all approved, then it takes them a week for you to be able to pay for the permit to come and pick it up. It's like, just send me the invoice, I'll pay for it. But you got to wait a week between the time everything is approved. You're not asking for special treatment. You're not
in the digital world that we live in.
It's just you
got to wait for it to come in the mail.
That you have just run the gauntlet, finished the odyssey to get through to a permit, and then you make me a week to pay for it, so I got to pick it up.
And then my thing is this: at what point do you see the same track record with an individual? You got some people that come, that has been doing this for decades. Like,
these are not fly-by-night operations.
That's what I'm saying. At some point, I'm not saying like lay off, but I'm saying at some point, you need to get an express line or something. I mean, something has to, like pre-dev something or something to pick up an efficiency somewhere.
It's like there's got to be that trust, between a community and the people trying to help build it. And in some communities, that trust exists and it works, and there's oversight. No one's getting a special deal. There's requirements. We're not asking to cut corners or build substandard housing whatsoever. Rules are good as long as they're, applied evenly and consistently, because ease of compliance means ease of enforcement, which means projects happen faster.
And overcomable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's possible. It's not something on the table that's ridiculously impossible. And we know of several things we could probably all talk about with that. Yeah.
Well, what we've been talking about today, TJ, is one of the reasons the Home Builders Association exists is to just elevate this conversation and make, housing shouldn't be creating headlines. Typically, the only time housing creates headlines is when there's a problem, and that's what we're seeing nationwide. If housing is going the way it's supposed to be going, then people can find a place to live. They're finding a place to rent or to own or whatever. They can move freely and have those choices. But the fact that, and it doesn't create a headline, So unfortunately, housing has gotten to the point where, yes, it's a crisis. Those on the ground recognize it. The candidates for office will talk about the crisis, but the people in office don't manage like we're in a crisis. It's like, if the tornado whistle's going off, then you need to get to the basement. Well, you're saying the tornado whistle's going off, but you're sitting on a lawn chair out on the deck. Like, which is it? Is it an emergency or is it not? And so I think we all agree that housing is unhealthy right now.
It is.
And and if we're going to make it healthier for people, make the market healthier and improve outcomes for people, then we got to start taking action. And if you're unwilling to make things better, commit to not making it worse. So that's what we do at the HBA. And there's I think this is a great conversation because there's so many people out in the market today that are not members of the Home Builders Association that are working to make housing happen in their communities as well. So part of this podcast as well is to give voices to people that are engaged in all aspects of housing that don't necessarily patronize the HBA, because it really does take all of these different entities to make things better,
to make change.
So, absolutely.
Any final words, TJ?
Yeah, I guess the one thing that's constantly that's just mind-boggling to me, the people that are in these positions that can affect change, how often do they take inventory of themselves? Meaning that you can't tell me you're not waking up on an everyday basis on knowing something that is affecting you, somebody that you know, somebody that's close to you, in this housing situation. It's affecting you some kind of way. Because I take inventory of myself all the time. I realize now, after finally remodeling my personal home after my wife jumping down my back.
That's because the shoemaker always needs new shoes.
That's right.
You know that, right? Okay,
but,
yeah.
But I realized that I can't move out of my home and afford to move back in.
Right.
Right.
I can't.
Right.
So if I was to sell my personal home, I cannot afford to buy it back. So that makes me think of saying, TJ that was making $45K in 2013, that was managing a plant, that barely squeezed to buy this home, was now navigating this market, it's no longer.
Right.
Right.
It's no longer.
Unattainable.
Yeah.
It's not there. So what are you thinking about? The people that can actually affect these changes. Put yourself in your shoes. Don't forget.
Right.
So my thing is, like, each decision that you are making or implementing or whatever, think about the reverse effect. That could be you. It could be me. Or it could be me one day again. Mm-hmm. Because I can be elderly. I can be in a tight situation. What does it look like me if I can't get up the stairs anymore? Or whatever. So, I just often wonder that these people that are in these positions, do they actually take inventory of them, their parents, their cousins, anybody? But oftentimes it just seems like they just walk past the issue.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the ways potentially we can help, those policymakers as candidates learn to do that self-reflection or take inventory of themselves is to encourage everybody to get out and vote. You got to vote in your local elections. Nothing that happens in the White House or in Jeff City or Topeka or wherever is going to impact your housing circumstances as much as who's occupying 12th and Oak in KC or 8500 block of Santa Fe in Overland Park. Our city halls, that's where your housing circumstances happen. So don't sit out a local election.
I agree.
And if you don't know who to vote for, go seek it out.
Learn, read.
Everybody's got a website. Everybody's got, we need to take ownership of our communities by casting those ballots. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you who to vote for. I'll tell you who to vote for.
No, but you guys do a
on
great...
our political channels.
I will, yeah.
But we got to get to the point where people are taking ownership of their communities, because if your leadership in your community is determined by 20% of elected of qualified voters who turn up in a municipal election, they are not, the winners of those races are not going to adopt policy that is reflective of the entire community's needs.
That's right.
So if you want your needs met, you need to make sure that you are exercising that vote. And everybody on your block, everybody in your social network, everybody in your church, wherever you are at, did you vote? Are you going to vote? This is Kansas City. There's an election every year. Every 6 months, there's an election to vote for, regardless of what jurisdiction you're in. So get out and vote. Take ownership of your communities by determining these things, because it is not going to get better if people just say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Do what you can. Cast a vote.
And TJ, thanks for what you do, and thanks for sharing your story today.
Thank you guys for all what you do.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, if you've enjoyed today's conversation with Terrell Jolley, we want to talk about the things that you want to talk about in future episodes of the HBA. So if you've got a question, a thought, a concern that you want to hear addressed on a future episode, please visit kchba.org/podcast. Drop us a note, drop us a question. We want to hear from you and talk about things of interest to all of you. But until the next episode, as always, I'm Will Reuter. With me is Keith Sauro. And TJ, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, man.
All right. Y'all have a great one.
Thanks.